Alright, and here's the video review for Titan's Return Voyager class Galvatron with Nucleon. They come with their instructions, they come with their bio card, which again shows off the stats on the back here. One of these days I'm going to remember which way to flip this thing properly to show it off, just by doing that. But yeah, there's the stats there on the back. And when he comes with his little Headmaster Nucleon, which as you can see here, looks like Megatron. The Takara version appears to have more paint apps with the red and black to make it look more like Megatron, but he is a little Megatron there. And even when you flip into his head, he has a vaguely Megatronish head, which I like as the homage to Megatron becoming Galvatron. Although I hate the gimmick when you get to robot mode, but we'll get to that. And he can sit right here in the cockpit of this jet fighter mode. All the Voyagers are triple changers, at least all the ones we've seen so far, which I think is just Sentinel Prime and Astro Train, which are the same mold, this guy and Alpha Trion. Although we don't have confirmation Alpha Trion's a triple changer, we kind of assume it, because why not? Nothing bad ever happened by assuming. That's what they tell me at any rate. So anyway, here's his jet mode. And we'll go ahead and focus that. Brighten it up. And here we go. So his jet mode is, or spaceship mode, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of, it's a spaceship because we tell you it is. But I can vaguely see it. It's got a vaguely R-Wing-esque shape to it. Doesn't look like much from underneath. Giant cannon on the front. His cannon is huge. You can remove it, though, and just have a standalone little snub fighter looking ship here. Although, like, when I see it without the cannon, I almost feel like this one made a great body for Ape Face. And when I get that Titan Master, we'll throw him on there and see what he looks like. Although he's going to look like Galvatron with Ape Face's head. But, you know, hey. But yeah, there's his little fighter mode without the cannon. He does have his standard space cannon mode. We'll go ahead and pop you out of here for the time being. And to do that, you want to flip this forward. There's a little tab here that connects onto this little purple tab, or a little tab that goes into a slot on this. They fold this whole thing down and around and under. You kind of want to keep this, it's supposed to be at an angle. If it doesn't end up at an angle, it's not going to kill anything, trust me. So the legs come back, and you want to collapse them all the way in like this. And they are supposed to peg together. You'll see that little tab and slot there. And there's one on the other side down near the ankle, which I'll show off in just a second. There's one down here as well. And he suffers from the same thing Scourge does with these leg filler panels just kind of hanging out on the bottom in both cannon and jet mode. But, you know, it is what it is. So yeah, it's kind of hard to get them to peg together and stay together, but you can get them close enough. And again, that could be something that varies from copy to copy. On mine, it's a pain in the booty. So pull those up. This whole assembly with the arm, you can see, like starting right here, this whole assembly rotates down. Like this. The arms come, and then the arms rotate further, and then the treads flip. Down, stay pegged in, arm. We don't need you loose yet. And then, again, same over here. Rotate the arm forward. Rotate this whole assembly down. Flip the tread down. And then you can use the shoulder joints to widen that stance. It's going to be a little back heavy until we get the cannon attached. And the cannon attaches, you take the cannon, you flip this piece up, you fold this piece up, and then this peg right here pegs in right here. You open these up a little bit to make room, peg that in, close those up. And there he is in his more traditional space cannon mode, which looks pretty good. I dig it. Big giant orange cannon, purple body, gray rear end. There he is. You can leave Nucleon in the cockpit for this if you want. You can take him out. I took him out. Yeah, there it is. Not bad. A nice version of his classic space cannon. Not a tank, not some other alternate mode that we feel would make more sense. They gave him his silly purple space cannon mode, and I give them a thumbs up for that. It's a nice representation. Anyway, onto robot mode. Take the legs, pull them up and out, rotate them to the front, flip the feet out, and then these panels that I was complaining about earlier fold in to fill in the back of the leg. This thing just kind of chills here on the back. Bring the shoulder pieces back up. Push these down if they just come loose at all. Rotate the whole waist around. Whoops. Lift this panel up, which exposes the red bits on his chest. Turn these around, turn his legs back around this way. Then this piece folds up onto the back. This piece folds down. It doesn't tab in anywhere, but it kind of covers up that panel right there on his back. Come around all the way, you silly foot. And then we'll come up top here. Pop the cannon out of that plug and flip it back down and around like that. There is that. I think that's supposed to be a landing gear for his spaceship mode, but considering like he's already this is already thicker in the front than the back, so he already in spaceship mode tends to sit like this. This landing gear is kind of stupid, but it is there if you want it, or you can flip it up like that. But whatever. But there's the cannon. So take his cannon, set it off to the side. And on his body, bring the arms down, fold the treads up again into the back. Bring the forearms down, flip out his fists. And again, he's got some little dedicated tabs in there for flipping his wrists out. And again, because of the way his wrists work, there's no wrist swivel, unfortunately. Flip his shoulder pads down. Attach the cannon. And the cannon attaches to the front of his arm, which does limit some of his posability. It's a nice throwback, I guess, to the original toy, but it could have been better. You can't really get a good arm shooting pose with him, although you can get... The shoulder pad does move out of the way, so you can get him facing forward, but since there's no wrist rotation and the bicep swivel is behind where it pegs in, you can't get him with the fist down shooting his cannon pose, which is a little bit of a shame. But you take Nucleon, you turn him into his Megatron face, you plug him into the neck hole here. You can get him into the neck hole here. No, that's right. There we go. So plug him onto the neck hole. And then when you open up his chest, his faceplate flips up. And if you've got his face configured properly, just the right angle, it will actually look like his Galvatron's face, kind of. Like I said, the way it works, getting it into that angle, it never really sits quite right. His face doesn't mold into it, so it fits up. It kind of gives him a Galvatron-esque head mask, but because his face ends up sitting a couple millimeters behind the faceplate, it looks silly. And because of the way the gimmick works, you can get a little bit of rotation out of it, out of the whole assembly, but that's about it. You know, obviously, if you leave the head, if you leave this flipped in, because this assembly, you can see it's all one piece. It does rotate a little bit, but because once the mask is up, it gets caught on this edge, it can't rotate too far. Obviously, that the head without that mask has the full 360, much like Sentinel Prime, although his head turning gimmick is much better executed, despite the fact that it does limit the face a little bit. So yeah, and that's really where it kills it for me. The body, I think, is great. Even the posability limitations of the arm with the cannon on is mildly problematic, but he's supposed to have a giant cannon, and those things aren't really easy to wield. So, like, that's a shame. But the face just kills it. And I know the Takara version, I think, has some purple around the helmet to make it blend a little better up close. But because of the way the head attaches into the thing, it doesn't push any further down than that, and the mask doesn't come quite up enough to really let his eyes sit in. You either have to tilt the head forward to see his eyes, in which case the mask sits weirdly. And it's clearly like a face just sitting. You can see the gap there. And that's about as good as it gets. If you try to if you push the mask all the way up, it pushes the head back to where you can't even see his eyes. It's just a really lame gimmick. If his head sat down a little further into this joint, maybe it would work. And I don't want to force it. But yeah, it's a pretty cool figure until you get to that little faceplate gimmick, and it just kind of throws it all apart for me. And it's kind of a shame, because with Sans head, I think it's an excellent Galvatron figure. It's a nice homage. The colors are good. The basic body shapes I like. It's just, if it doesn't look good in robot mode with the head, then what's the point? Now, somebody has done a mod where they've just cut the faceplate off and glued it to the headmaster, which you can do. I would have liked to have seen a fully integrated headmaster, but if you glue it to the headmaster, then with these spikes and everything, he can't fit in the seat anymore. Doesn't retain all the other functionality because he's got the giant faceplate hanging off his back. So, like I said, excellent until it literally is tripping at the finish. Well, not literally, but it's the very definition of tripping at the finish line, because it, like I said, the jet spaceship mode was decent, not perfect, but a decent looking kind of spaceship. I dig the shape of it. His space cannon mode, we've got a space cannon mode. They're not trying to make him a tank. They're not trying to turn him into some other thing that vaguely homages his space cannon mode. He's got a freaking space cannon mode, and it's great. And then his body, he's got the red squares on the abdomen, a nice stature. He's solid, he's chunky. He's not the spindly, weird tank that we got back in Generations. And his head's a mess. And this is kind of disappointing. So yeah, I may do the mod, just glue the faceplate on and live with the less functional Nucleon. But yeah, it could have been so much better, and just that last little bit ends up making it really not worth the price of admission, to be honest. And just a real quick update. As soon as I finished that video review, I went, because I didn't want to do it on camera in case I was doing something wrong and broke it. I did end up managing to get his face to push in just a little bit farther into the headmaster socket. So now at least it solves one of my issues. You can see now it pushes and sits flush. So now at least when you open his face, you can see his face. Although again, if you turn it much to the side, you can still see that open gap there behind the faceplate. It still doesn't sit flush with the headmaster. So his face ends up sitting significantly behind the faceplate. From dead on front, it really doesn't look too bad when you push that headmaster all the way in. I think I may have had a piece of flash blocking it originally. But still, from the side, it's still, this gimmick's still not winning me over. And maybe if some of that purple on the helmet will let the headmaster blend a little better into that faceplate, maybe that'll work. But you still don't have any significant side-to-side head movement. I mean, like, that's about all you get, because of the way that bumps his way that mask bumps against this thing. Even if there had been some way to make this whole centerpiece rotatable so the head could turn all the way around, it would be less egregious. But or even if this just sat more flush with the headmaster face. Anyway, I did want to correct that one little bit. You can push his head a little farther in and have it, at least the face, be visible when the faceplate comes up, but it's still just half-baked. Now, that said, you know his posability is in the head is kind of bunk, but the shoulder pads do lift up to give his arms a pretty good range of motion. You can lift them up above his head, but again, swivel front to back, swivel side to side. Does have a bicep swivel, somewhat limited by the fact that the tread is on the back and will bump into the body. He's got dual hinged elbows, partly for transformation there. He does have a waist swivel, although you're going to want to make sure that this panel right here is lowered to really get much use out of it. There's some very weak detents, so you're not hearing any clicking, but I can definitely feel stopping points in there, but they're not enough to hold the leg in place, but you're not going to feel much resistance when moving them side to side. It looks like they're just a straight swivel forward. Dual hinge knees, although with that leg cover, you're really only getting use of one. thigh swivel. I think I pointed that out. And he does have some side-to-side ankle tilt, as well as front-to-back motion in his feet. So, like I said, this arm gets a little limited by the cannon. There are some ways around it, but there is enough clearance there to have him point his cannon forward. So yeah, like I said, some decent stuff going on here. Really just kind of killed by the way the head gimmick works.